2016. You want me to buy you ice cream? I will get you some ice cream if they want to get. Do you watch basketball, Sammy? Do you watch basketball? You did? For who? Oh, no way. That's crazy. Yeah. You are a national champion for like women's major league soccer? Yeah. No, but like major like professional soccer? Street soccer. Yeah, yeah. We could just put the chairs away. You could play in here. Yeah. Show these guys who's boss. Oh man. Huh? It's in Texas. Yeah. Tonight's in San Antonio. We're gonna get started just in a minute. If people want to take a couple of quick minutes, I know some of us are sitting a little bit more scattered away from others, but we're big on community here. So you can take a couple of minutes, just introduce yourselves to the people sitting around you, share some names, how your day's going. We'll get started just in a bit, inshallah. Alhamdulillah. How many of you are gonna stay to watch the game after Maghrib? Just by show of hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Great. Okay, should we get started? Bismillah. Bismillah walhamdulillah. Wassalatu wassalam ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa barak wasallam. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. So we're going to close out our discussion of the 4th verse of Surah Al-Mu'minoon today. وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ لِلزَّكَاةِ فَاعِلُونَ. We've been looking at it for a few weeks. For those who haven't joined us before, the previous 8 sessions are up online still on our YouTube channel. You can catch up with those. We're going to go through these first 11 verses of Surah Al-Mu'minoon, in which they describe characteristics. The Prophet ﷺ, these verses are revealed. He says, essentially, that those who act upon them, they will enter into Jannah. And his wife, radiallahu ta'ala anha, when she's asked about the Prophet's character, she says that his character is the Quran. And then in one narration, she says that these verses were his character. We'll be going through them in a more deliberate pace, but just so people are aware, the next set of verses, the characteristic, وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ لِفُرُوجِهِمْ حَافِظُونَ, is 3 verses of the 11, right? So we're going to jump and get through a good chunk of it. I'll probably wrap up with these by the next 2 weeks, inshallah. Why do I share that with you? I'd like for people who have been coming, regularly, irregularly, whatever pace you're coming at, for us to think out, what are we going to do next? On Mondays before, for a couple of years, we were going through the 40 hadith of Imam Nawawi, the Arba'in of Imam Nawawi, and I think we had gone through more than half of that book over the course of 2 years. So we can go back to that and finish that up. It's not a class that you have to have come to the first ones to kind of partake in the other ones. And then on Wednesdays, we had been doing the Sirah, and we had gotten through the Meccan Sirah, and we did that for also a couple of years, and it just entered into the Medinese Sirah. And we're in the 2nd year after the Prophet had came to Medina, and we were at the night before the Battle of Badr, right? We don't have to talk about it now, but I think it would be great to get feedback from people. If you have any thoughts, what kind of things would be good for us to continue on with? There are some other people that have asked to also start teaching some classes here regularly. I asked people if on Monday, because the class now from 6 to 8:30 essentially, it's about 2.5 hours, and if it's too long, Zainab said I talk too much, so she said it was too long. She said we should have a break in the middle and go hydrate. It's the exact words. Yeah. No, but I think just to kind of start similar to what we were doing before, diversifying people who are speaking here, do a little benefit for many people. But if you all have thoughts on things we should continue with on Mondays, Wednesdays, be anything, just let me know. We'll try to figure that out so it's ready to go as we transition out of these 11 verses. So last time we talked about what were some of the metrics that one could utilize to indicate that tazkiyah was working, right? وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ لِلزَّكَاةِ فَاعِلُونَ. It's a Meccan surah, we said. Quick recap. The Meccan verses, in large part, talked about Tawheed, the oneness of God, the Akhirah, the afterlife. They talked about ethics and values. And so these verses being revealed in Mecca, some would say we're still a precursor to the institutionalizing of zakah as a mandatory charity, that over the course of the first 9 years in Medina, there was a gradual progression of the rules and parameters for zakah. Others would say that more broadly, the verse applies to zakah as charity as well as zakah as a purification process, what we call tazkiyah. And last week we talked about what were some of the indicators that tazkiyah was actually working. You know, that purification process, right? And some of them we said, an output of tazkiyah is that one becomes more concerned with their own faults rather than the faults of others. You know, if you have a tendency to see what's wrong with everybody else, like it's telling you a lot about your own heart. You know what I mean? Tazkiyah, like an output, is that the person who's successful with purification is going to be in a place where, they start to practice more in secrecy, no visibility, just when Allah is looking at them, right? We went through about 15 of these. I put them in the WhatsApp group. And so today we wanted to talk about the how-tos, and why we want to talk about what are the potential kind of yields from tazkiyah is because you have to incentivize yourself for it, right? Like, it's not going to be easy to do the cutting out and putting in of something beneficial, right? So the two parts to tazkiyah, the example we used is like your heart has capacity to it, the way this bottle does. And you can't put something into something that's already filled up. So one part of tazkiyah is that you let out what's not good. And then the second part is that you fill it back up with stuff that's good. And it's really kind of the two components to what this thing is about, like getting rid of what's not good, filling up with what is good. And not with ambiguity, but through a prism of what Allah and Allah's Messenger deemed to be good and not good. And the connection point we made to the verse before that we looked at for a couple of weeks, وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ عَنِ اللَّغْوِ مُعْرِضُونَ, that the believers are those who avoid those things that are laghu, futile. We said a connection point between the maharim, the things that are haram, Allah protect us from engaging in them willfully or unwillfully, is that they have a characteristic of becoming potentially habituated. So zina, fornication, pornography, alcohol, substances of all kinds, weed, crack, cocaine, gambling, like these things can become habituated as well as addictive. And modernity shows us that lahu, things that are just distracting and futile, those could also become habituated. You just scroll and scroll and scroll. And within that, it's just taking time, right? So here, this process of tazkiyah, letting go of something, is not going to always necessarily be the easiest of things to do. But in recognizing the incentive of why you'd want to do it, and the removal of something that's not good and the replacing of it with something that's good, in and of itself can be a process. But why we started with, well, what are the gains of this thing? Of the things that we mentioned, none of them were actually things that anybody should be at odds with necessarily. You might get to a place where you throw yourself against a wall, defending yourself from things that nobody's even criticizing you with, because the constant mode of just kind of uh, defense mechanisms put us in a place where we try to justify things that we know are just not necessarily good for us at the end of the day. But here, the aspiration of it that says, do I want to be a person that actually lives in this way? That I don't need the validation of people. My performance of things is not so that people will applaud me. It doesn't mean that I feign humility and I'm condescending to somebody who says something nice to me, but I still do what's right, whether somebody recognizes it or not. Tazkiyah can bring you to this place. Do I want to be in a place where I look down at others and I'm judgmental of others, or I'm constantly pointing out other people's flaws? Do I like to be in a place where I'm negative and I complain all the time and I'm always able to say why something is not good and I see what's not there rather than what's there? Or do I want to look through an abundance framework rather than a scarcity framework and see what's actually present and not just appreciate blessings, but have a mode of perspective through which the recognition of blessings becomes now something that just has continuity to it, right? An avenue for this is what we call tazkiyah. And you want to sit with some of the things that we mentioned last time, because the how-tos of this are going to require a lot of different things. One of the things that we'll come back to today, I don't like making generalizations. I sit with people a lot individually, see through that the experience that's undeniable that people are whole people at the end of the day. And what's going to work for someone is not going to work for someone else necessarily. But a generalization that I'm comfortable making is that one of the foundational things that we want to empty our hearts out of, we can just call laziness. Procrastination that has me do something much later than doing it now. Do you know? And when I talked about discipline last week as opposed to motivation, you just keep putting it off and keep putting it off and keep putting it off until it's just not the opportunity there anymore. You can't avail yourself of it. I'm going to pray my sunnahs later. I'm going to, hang out with my friends later. I'm going to, start sleeping earlier later. I'm going to watch less TV later. I'm going to, set up that appointment later. I'm going to go for counseling later. Those things don't fundamentally come, not because they're intangible, but because within myself, procrastination just builds itself up, albeit through exhaustion, which a big part of today's session is going to be recognizing the nafs thrives in exhaustion. Tiredness thrives in exhaustion. And why we want to go through tazkiyah is so that we have replenishment and reinvigoration and we're able to find contentment and balance in the world. And you guys got to ask yourself this, right? Part of it's going to also be tough because I don't necessarily like to admit the things about myself that I don't like so much or that other people want me to recognize, but I have a reason as to why I'm doing these things. And why that incentivization is important is because the process for some of it's going to be hard. When we were at NYU, one of the things I realized about myself in Ramadan, when we started getting more and more people in Ramadan, if you were here this Ramadan, you saw how much the room is packed in Ramadan, right? How many people come here on average a night, in and out, unique for pre-iftar halaqah, iftar, salatul tarawih, qiyams. Some nights we're getting more than 1,500 people here in and out who are unique individuals for different parts of this thing. You can imagine too, being in a place where you serve a large community and being present in those things necessitates understanding
Well, how do I adapt seasonally to potential exhaustion? So one of the things I realized was that late at night, because we do these amazing bake sales to raise money for charity, that when I would eat sugar late at night after not eating really a lot during the day, the next day I was like 100 times more tired. And the nice thing about our community that really messes me up is that a lot of people will bake for this thing and they'll cook things and then they'll come with a separate plate and say, I made a whole plate of these for you too, you know? And I will just eat all of them. And so I said to myself some years ago in Ramadan that I'm just not going to eat processed sugars. I'm going to also cut out like rice, pasta, bread, because my personal diet usually has me eating at least one of those things, if not all of those things, in that one meal. And it's not necessarily for you, but for me to just understand myself. When I cut out processed sugars initially, I had headaches, my like entire demeanor changed. Every part of me like would smell this stuff, and it just put me into a place where I was like very angry and irate. And I remember one day a young woman made these like lemon bars, and she same thing. I just made a plate of lemon bars for you too, you know? And I was like, oh no, I'm okay. And she was like, no, no, have them. And she's like putting the thing under my nose. I could like smell this thing. There's like literal drool dropping out of my mouth. I was so angry. Like that was the impact it was having on me. I don't know how many years I went without eating this stuff. And then one day I ate a peanut butter cup, which is like my favorite thing in the world, and it tasted so gross. And I got really sad because this thing that I loved, I no longer enjoyed it. And then other things that I liked didn't taste so good anymore. And things that I didn't typically eat, they started to taste a lot better. And to get through that place, I had to go through a few weeks where the ease of falling back into it would have been something that I could give into without any hesitation, other than I knew why I was doing what it was that I was doing. Like, what was the incentive? And it was more important to me that in a month where we have thousands of people coming in and people are going through a lot, and it's my own Ramadan too, and I'm going to fast and pray and read Quran, I don't want to be exhausted because I'm giving into complacency rather than contentment. And it became so hard to overcome that habit. But when I did, alhamdulillah, it shifted a lot of other stuff inside me. It had a domino effect. That's what happens when you purify yourself of something that's not good for you. COVID hit, and I fell off the wagon really hard. It was really tough. I was sitting in my apartment, as many of you did in New York City. I didn't leave for I don't know how long. My kids and I were sitting at home, and I was very senselessly just eating and snacking. And I got to a place where the consequences of reverting back to a diet that didn't make any sense, in addition to all of the other things happening in COVID. It's okay. Did you want it? No? Guys, we live in a Manhattan building. To give you an idea, because I know a lot of people have ideas on things, we brought in people to try to figure out how to deal with some of it. The building that we're underneath in the basement, they don't really take such good care of things in their basement. And so what happens is a lot of things from that basement just kind of travel through the walls. Over the course of the 2 years that we're going to be renovating and constructing, you're going to see mice in the building, right? They're not rats, they're mice. Do you know? They're going to be here. It's okay. And if the mouse is, are you okay? You're not okay? Zainab, you're like the toughest person in the world. What's wrong? You all right? Okay, what are you gonna do? It's not gonna jump from there to over there, man. It's coming to you. Yeah, yeah. Okay. If anybody sees a mouse, just throw it at Zainab. We'll help her overcome her fear. You want to have a sense of the incentive as we go through the process. Otherwise, the things that we talk about, you're going to listen to it, but you're not going to do it. And you have to tell yourself that I don't want to be the person who my output is rooted in a heart that is neglected and a nafs that's strong, or irreconciled emotions, or things that have me in a place where the behavioral output, this doesn't make any sense. Like, do you like yelling at people? Do you know? Or at the other end, internalizing someone yelling at you in ways that they should have never yelled at you. The base of this conversation, firstly, has to be able to understand who we are inherently as humans. Very distinct from animals. Did you see that mouse as it was close to me? Yes, right? A lot of you saw it. It happened 2 minutes ago. What happened when you got alarmed and startled to the mouse? Where did the mouse go? Huh? It went away. Why did the mouse go away? Huh? What is it scared of? Huh? Why is it scared of you? Yeah, because you don't like the mouse, and the mouse knows that Zainab wants to harm the mouse, right? Animals don't ever run towards harm. The mouse didn't come and say, let me go to the large human beings that are all pointing and yelling at me. The animal said, let me run away from the thing that's harmful to me. Humans, in contrast, constantly run to the things that are harmful to them. Why? And that characteristic, if you can understand how it functions, you know that some of those things hurt you. They are harmful for you. Have you ever seen a bird other than one that doesn't know there's a window, and the poor thing has to live against its own innate natural way of existence because humans aren't living the way humans are supposed to? That's where most animals get screwed up, not because suddenly a dog says, you know what, I think I'm going to smoke a cigarette today, right? No dog is saying that, as much as no dog is saying, let me just run into the fire. The only time the dog runs into the fire, if the human that the dog loves is in the fire and they want to save the human, right? A bird might fly into a window because it doesn't know that the window is there, but the birds don't fly into danger, they fly away from danger, correct? Why do humans go towards the things that are harmful to them? And when you talk about aql, the ability to discern right from wrong, it is about being able to recognize, how do I go towards what's beautiful and how do I run away from what is harmful? And the inverse happens a lot. I'm running towards ugliness and running away from beauty. All of you literally just saw the mouse run away from harm. And where tazkiyah comes in, it's a mechanism and a process that enables us to reclaim our ability to choose to run towards beauty and run away from harm, and to upend the pursuit of things that are harmful for us. Physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, harmful in this world, harmful in the next world. And understanding this question reflectively in a way that individually you start to contemplate. The little mouse knows better than to run towards harm. The grown human being, none of you in this room is younger than perhaps maybe your late teens. Most of you are probably older than that. And some of you, like me, are much older than that. So why do humans run towards harm as opposed to running away from it? And I'm not saying in a protective mode. Do you know? You know that scrolling on your phone at night is going to screw up your sleep. Why do you do it? You know that hanging out with people that bring out the worst in you is not good. You know your sleep doesn't make any sense. You know some of the food that you eat is literally creating toxins in your body. Why do humans chase after the harmful? Why don't they just run away? The aql can get dimmed and diminished. This is where tazkiyah becomes important. But we want to wrestle with this question a little bit before we get into the how-tos. More people have trickled in. So let's talk about this for a minute. Why do you think that humans are more prone towards running towards the harm and not away from the harm? Because all the other animals, they're running away from the harm. They're not running towards it. What's going on within us that we're doing the opposite of what would be sensible? Would you say the mouse is smart if the mouse willfully ran towards the ones that dislike it? No. Why do you do that? And it's not meant to be a rhetorical question, but one that you actually start to think about. Why is there this innate tendency for some of us? Or how have we become socialized to run towards the harmful things rather than stay away from them? Let's turn to the persons next to us, exchange some names. Why do humans go towards the harm as opposed to stay away from it? Let's discuss for a bit. If you don't know names, share some names, and then we'll come back and talk. Go ahead.
Sorry I'm about to leave for real. Um, did you have a chance? I heard you were working on a list of like people you for sure don't want us to forget for Saturday.
No, I told them I would get back to them today on how we should go about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
Did you send me the times you're free for the coffee place?
Slack, yes.
You did?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. What are we talking about? Why do people run towards what's harmful? You want to say something? Can you pass this back?
I think like with humans we have that sense of curiosity. We wanna know how this harmful thing would harm us. Like I'm thinking about from the time of Adam alayhi salatu salam, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said don't eat from this tree is like forbidden, and also the rule of the shaitan like guiding us toward that harm versus animals like immediately their brain is like this is harmful, I'm running away, this is good, I'm going for it. But with humans we know it's harmful, but we have that curiosity of like, what if? And Shaitan also like helps with leading us to that harm.
Yeah, great. So one reason people have curiosity, right? I wonder what it's like to smoke this thing. I wonder what it's like to drink this thing. Do you know? Why would someone gossip? Like why would someone backbite? Why would somebody be racist? You don't have to answer those questions, but someone had their hand raised. Yeah, go ahead.
Assalamualaikum everyone. I feel like sometimes we are just attracted to harmful stuff just because of dunya and also shaitan waswasa, but sometimes I feel like having bad influence by our friends and people we are surrounded, and most of the time we do that because we're just surrounded with bad people. There's a proverb in Farsi which says that if you're with us, you're gonna become like us, but if you hang out with a black pot, then you're gonna become a black pot. So it's like the same thing. I feel like because I feel that like whenever I'm surrounded with negative or toxic people, it just distracts my peace and my own faith with Allah.
Yeah, great.
Assalamu alaikum. We were talking about how one reason might be the kind of habitual or even instinctual forgetfulness that humans fall into. I think it's a way of life for a lot of us. And I think that forgetfulness becomes a way of protecting ourselves from the evil system in the world, but it also leads us towards having to learn lessons again and again and again and again and again and again and go through these cycles of your life where you're relearning lessons because there's something in the human being that is inclined to like forgetfulness. And I think talking about how that is why like that's why it's so for example, I believe like leads us away from forgetfulness into this like ritualized remembrance of the rest of the day. I think it also, for me, I think of it as in like doing things that require careful thought before taking an action versus careless actions, and also feeling like you have to follow others, whether it be by the people you surround or the people you see on TV or on social media. It's just the idea of like whether like you're programmed to just do as others do, or if you as an individual are taking the time to think about what you're doing and the effects of that, right? So as a society, like we have this idea, like, oh, like if I do as this person's doing, or like the collective, and like it's seen as like you know the thing to do, versus you as an individual, if your idea is like separate from the majority, then you're seen as weird, or you're seen as like someone who's like, oh, thinking too deep about it rather than carelessly taking action.
Other guys want to say anything? No? Everybody awake over here? Yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
I wanted to add, I think the way evil is sort of like manufactured or presented to us is like very so to restart, I think we all have like a natural fitra towards like God and towards like good things. We're wired that way. But I think evil things sort of wrap themselves or disguise themselves and sort of presenting like a shortcut to getting this like very beautiful thing that we want. So if we want love, it takes time, it takes like a correct way to get it. But I think evil things are sort of presented in a way of, oh, if you do it like this, you can get it very fast, you can fulfill very quickly. It's just presented as a quicker means to getting what you're actually inclined towards, but it's not, and it's very deceptive.
Good. All the things that are being described right now, what part of you does that come from? Immediacy, impact on companionship, being in a place where there's not consciousness or presence in these things. These are nafsi influenced decisions. Your nafs is making your choice. And this is not a judgmental statement. The nafs by its nature is lazy. And so laziness is going to become a big part of this, because it's going to take more time to be more patient, to wait for the craving and rewards fulfillment. It's going to take time to spend with good company rather than spending with whoever it is that you're around. It's going to take time to go to the gym, to read Quran, to pray your daily prayers. There's going to need to be a sense of how you exert beyond just habituated thoughts and bring presence and consciousness to things. What makes us distinct from other creatures, right? We can communicate differently. You and I in this room right now, if I asked everybody, and I don't have this mechanism to do it, inshallah one day we'll have it in the space. I'll say to you, send me an email and write every language that you know how to speak, read, or write. And then I make a word bubble out of it, and then I put it up on a screen just in this room, which is not even a percentage of our community size here at this Islamic Center. You probably represent a variety of languages that can be spoken. Do you know? A dog can only bark. A bird can only chirp. Humans have the ability to express. One of the things we're going to talk about in 5 minutes is that a big part of the knowledge component to this is not what we understand knowledge to only be, but also to be. Like read, learn more, but you know the meanings of things through the names of things. Purification is going to be hard to do if you don't put in the time to learn about yourself more deeply, and you solve for the most immediate application of terminology that you apply to yourself, and you tell yourself that you're one of 6 emotions all the time. Whereas in reality, the feelings that you feel are the emotions that are a little bit more kind of vividly experienced. And emotions are essentially just energy in motion within you. And you can experience tens of thousands of emotions. If you went on your phone right now and you didn't send a text message with words, you could have an entire conversation with a person sitting miles away from you who doesn't even speak the same language, just using emojis. And all they're doing is indicating like your state of being from an emotional standpoint. But you just keep telling yourself you're sad or you're angry only. And then strategically, you're purifying for the easiest, most simplest thing. It's laziness. As human beings, distinct from the mouse that just knows, don't run to the harm, we have the ability to think. Everybody thinks. It's not like a victory to just think. Taqwa is about reclaiming what you think about and how you think about the things you think about, right? But when we stop engaging in our human faculties and we start to appeal to the lower self, then the Quran is always true. You just got to read it and understand what it's telling you. It's not hidden. You're going to be drawn towards things that are not good if you keep feeding the parts of yourself that are drawn towards the things that are not good. You'll be drawn towards the things that are good for you if you feed those parts. And at some level, if you don't start paying attention to what your mind, your body, your heart, your spirit are telling you, you're going to implode on yourself at the end of it all. And then a society that wants us as minorities to be broken and to be exhausted and to think our success is that we become that which it was that was holding us down in the beginning. It's not success for us. What's success? قَدْ أَفْلَحَ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ. Success is Jannah. May Allah make us people of Jannah. Where is Jannah's presence in your decision in terms of why you are deciding to have a deep friendship with somebody that all you do when you spend time with them is speak poor about other people? Can you tell me that there's beauty in gossiping? Why do you do it? And if you can wrestle with this and understand the incentive part to it, the why, we can think about motivations and justifications, but you'd have to really ask yourself, is it worth it at the end, what it is that the harmful stuff is bringing to me? Harmful is not haram only. Certain things that are permissible can be harmful for you, right? What if instead of drinking just this bottle of water, I sat here right now and drank 100 bottles of these waters? Wouldn't it be good? I would vomit all over the place, right? It's water. You make wudu with water. Water is both a pure and purifying substance. But it doesn't make sense if there's not moderation to it. Do you see what I mean? When you mute what makes you essentially human, it's going to start to create now an ease on the pathway to get you to a place where what is embedded in our prophetic du'as, let me see truth as truth and falsehood as falsehood. Why does some of us see truth as falsehood and falsehood as truth? Why? It comes back to what part of me is governing my decisions. And do I want to be the person who sees the world in this way or that way? If we were only as smart as the mouse that actually runs away from what's harmful, as opposed to going into the middle of it, what would you all, man, if that mouse ran into the middle of this group, these chairs would be thrown, people would be jumping all over the place, we wouldn't even know. And afterwards, I'm so sorry, the mouse, I was like, yeah, we all saw it. It was like under my foot. Do you know what I mean? If that mouse ran into the middle of it, then that's on that mouse. But it's smarter than that. Do you see? And when the Quran tells us, "Ulaika kal an'am," they're like cattle. You're not even feeding into what's the most innate sense of akal that a mouse, a rodent, vermin has. And how do we get to that and start to move away from it? You just got to want to live like a human being and try to be the kind of human that the Quran wants to produce. Compassionate, generous, patient, a person of integrity, one who finds reliance on divine decree, does not find their sense of solace based off of what they own or do not own, gets to a place where the manipulation of anti-Black systems does not become what we become submissive to. Spend some time, a little bit, in how you experience the world. Through this question, why do humans chase after what's harmful? When you distill it to the haram, and this is a relevant question from a purification standpoint, because a purified heart would not just look at somebody who engages in haram and say, haram. A lot of people turn to haram because there's an absence of community support. They're feeling hurt, they're feeling pain. They need to numb because everybody's always telling them what's wrong with them, as opposed to anybody spending some time and living prophetic counsel. And then if all you start to do as black and brown people is pass anger and tiredness and exhaustion amongst yourselves, who's going to win in that situation? When we now think about this, there's going to be practical elements to it. I want to talk about knowledge as a pathway to tazkiyah, because the how-tos are going to be important. And none of it's secret. It's all in the Quran and the Hadith. Fasting, for example, is a great mechanism for purification. لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ, so that maybe you might get taqwa. Leaving the door open for also, you might not get it, but the potential is there. You got to just do the fast. كُتِبَ عَلَيْكُمُ الصِّيَامُ كَمَا كُتِبَ عَلَى الَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِكُمْ لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ. Some of you don't have the physical ability to fast. May Allah reward you for your intention. Most of you do, but many of you do not fast after having fasted and benefited from fasting in Ramadan. It's not a secret. The Quran tells you to fast. The Hadith says to fast. It doesn't obligate fasting. So if you can't fast, like outside of Ramadan, it's not obligatory. And there's rahmah to this, right? But you don't need somebody to tell you something with deep profundity. The question more so is, why am I not doing it? Knowledge can be in that way. Somebody's new to Islam, whether they were born into it or converted into it, they don't know. As well as if they don't know about themselves in relation to the exercise. But the other bucket of knowledge that we want to see as a necessary precursor to this is a knowledge that expands for us our sense of understanding, because we're deepening in what makes us inherently human, and that's our ability to communicate effectively, right? If Allah wanted you to bark like a dog, He would have made you a dog. But He didn't. He gave you language. How do you learn the words that tell you about yourself? Because if I pick up a book that's purification of the heart, and it talks to me about envy and jealousy and unjustifiable anger and hopelessness or extreme hope or all of these things, or it talks to me about values like courage and generosity and compassion and contentment and patience, where did you learn what these words mean, so that you can actually apply them accurately? The way language functions is that my tongue becomes a key organ that influences whether I exist in a certain state of self or another state of self. And you could convince yourself of anything from a perception standpoint. The more you say it, the more you believe it, regardless of whether that's reality or not. The world is not flat. Objectively, factually, it is not flat. There are people who believe the world is flat. The world does not need for people to believe it is not flat for it to not be flat, correct? If everybody told you you're dumb, everybody told you you're a mistake, everybody told you that there's things that are wrong with you, you didn't put the anger in your heart or the sadness or the confusion or the frustration or the anxiety or the depression or the grief or any of that. But what if I spent years of my life either being told or telling myself, I'm so angry, I'm so angry, I'm so angry, versus I said, I'm really hurting? What if somebody said to you, why are you so angry all the time? Why are you so angry all the time? You're just angry. Why are you so negative? You're so negative. Versus they said, hey, it seems like you're still hurting. Doesn't the word hurt evoke something different than anger? Are you going to write on a resume, I'm an angry person, as if you're proud about it? You might not say I'm hurt, but also for different reasons. It's okay. It's in the what? It's leading the prayer. The brother pray, man. Why are you? So, a part of emotional intelligence is being able to accurately name what one's feeling. You can't name something with a word that you don't know, right? Nor can you name it accurately if you don't actually know what the word means. If we all right now wrote down the word mouse, everybody knows what the mouse is, right? Just like if I said microphone, or I said laptop, or I said apple, all of you have the same definition. If I told you write a definition to the word love, if I told you write a definition to the word beauty, if I told you write a definition to the word patient, envy, jealousy, most of us would not have a common definition, let alone a definition at all. And the way somebody taught us 2 + 2 = 4, we didn't learn about some of these terms in the same way. How can you solve for something that occupies your heart if you don't have the words to express it? If the language is not there to be able to say, this is what I'm holding inside of me, how will you be able to recognize that it's then something that needs purification and removal from you? Does the question make sense? So what do I do in that situation from a knowledge acquisition standpoint? So the world, man, is filled with people who have ideas and opinions, and they talk about stuff they have no idea what they're talking about. We're talking about your heart now. May Allah grant us all hearts that are soft and tender. You can't solve for something if you don't know what you're actually solving for. And sometimes the answers don't work in that strategy of healing and purification, not because the answers are incorrect, but because the question is being asked wrongly. Complexity is not that it's difficult to understand, but sometimes it's multifaceted. You can feel a lot of different things at one time. And people feed you platitudes, or they just tell you like Allah this or the Prophet that, without giving you an ability to be human. Then everything just gets confused and there's conundrums, and my vision starts to get thrown off, and then I run towards what is harmful, thinking that it's a source of healing. What do I do if I don't know what it is that I'm even going through? Like if I told you, tell me all the feelings you have felt today. Could you tell me beyond the 6 or 8 words that you know? There's got to be a difference to them. Sadness cannot be the same thing as grief. It cannot be the same thing as depression, elation, joy, happiness, contentment. If these were all the same, they wouldn't be different words. Bucket number 1 in the how-to of tazkiyah, you have to increase in knowledge. How do I start increasing in that type of knowledge? What do I do in order to start increasing in that type of information acquisition? Does that make sense? Let's talk about it with the persons next to us for a bit. How do I start to increase in my emotional intelligence to be able to accurately name what it is that I'm actually experiencing and feeling? Let's discuss for a bit, and then we'll come back and talk about it. Go ahead. Okay, what are we talking about? Like, how do I start to figure that process out for myself? Yeah. Are you the mic holder to the? Yeah.
Allow yourself to go through the emotion.
Allow yourself to go through it. What does that mean?
Sometimes we pretend or we lie to ourselves and like if we're feeling sad, we'll lie to ourselves and we're not actually sad. Or like we'll just try to pretend and do everything, anything to avoid that feeling rather than just going through it.
Okay. Like you might know what it is and you still pretend that it's not, right? But how do you learn to even name it correctly in the beginning? Like, where do I get that type of understanding from?
We were discussing of like sometimes cultural barriers could be a reason. Like my first language is Arabic, so when I express things in Arabic, it's like it has deep meaning and I understand it. But when I try to speak it in English, it's just I'm using the basic words that sometimes I feel does not reflect how I feel down deep. And also kind of like the culture norm that people built to shut these emotions down. So like in a couple of minutes when you say God like give us a soft heart, that is seen in this society as a bad thing. Like, what do you mean soft heart? I would be crushed in this place. I should not have that soft heart. I should be shocked. And it's like really sad that knowing those emotional qualities that is good in Islam is seen as a bad thing because of cultural norms and the difference as someone who was from two cultures, like how compared to back home and then compared to the US.
Good. So if I don't have healthy coping mechanisms and I avoid conflict, or I'm not necessarily speaking to the right people, right? If I express myself well in one language or versus the other, I need somebody who's culturally competent to be able to engage me. A society that's teaching me to be a certain way keeps me from remembering who my teacher is, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It's very difficult. You don't want to pretend like it's easy, but being a minority in a system and in a world where, forget about what anybody else says today, we say it all the time. There's a hadith where the Prophet tells us that towards the end of time, holding on to a sunnah, he says, is going to be like holding on to a burning coal. Do you know? But you start to distill from this and your lived experience mechanisms that help to build a strategy. So if I can say that I don't cope well with emotions, how do you then start to learn how to cope well with emotions? I don't express myself well in English. Zainab expresses herself well in English, mashallah. So I'm not saying it about her, right? I still can't believe she's afraid of mice. My entire perspective on Zainab changed tonight. Yeah. But my self-talk can tell me I live in this world, English, 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 or I just know me and I got to be able to talk to somebody who can speak to me in a primary language, right? But then why would I keep going to somebody who does not? Do you understand? The mechanism to be able to figure it out is not always going to be just this broad cookie cutter thing that you can go online and listen to so-and-so and such give you an Instagram reel on how it is that you take care of your heart, because it's got specificity to it. But there are still some things that are generalizations that if you just start doing it and figuring out what gets in the way of getting it done, how do you learn something? How did you learn how to take care of your heart? Most of us never actually learned how to do it, right? And then just by experience, we were in a place where we pretended like we were doing stuff, but we didn't. Or the people who should have been helping us, they didn't help us. If you don't know how to do something, there's no shame in asking for help. But you have to make sure that you're asking the right people. You have to let your nafs, your ego, not get in the way. And then take the time to learn about yourself as a whole person. If there was only 6 emotions you could feel, then you would only have 6 emojis in your phone. There are not only 6 of them for a reason, because there's a lot more depth to what makes you you, and all parts of you are going to have the potential of overlap and strategy, but you can't figure out a solution if you don't have the language to diagnose the problem itself. You spend some time not always thinking about this from the perspective of Islam and something. Do you know what I mean? What does Islam say about this and this only, right? Islam is not a person personified that we can go to Islam and say, Islam, tell me what this is. Islam and democracy, Islam and politics, Islam and activism, Islam and social justice. No, man, sometimes you could just pick up a book on social justice. Sometimes you could read a book on emotional intelligence. Sometimes you could read a book on mental health and mental strength and mental discipline and fortitude. Other people have smart things to say too. Sometimes you just gotta first pick up the book and read it. And how much longer are you gonna run yourself into the ground because you don't have the words to define what it is in any language? And then people start building up barriers. They build temporary solutions. I work with a lot of survivors of abuse. May Allah grant them ease and protect us from ever becoming abusive in any way. And when they're stuck and they don't have people who validate, they start to name inaccurately, and then they build habits where pain comes out more so in expressions that are unhealthy. We want people to not have this stuff inside of them. Bucket number 2 here is why you want to deepen in awareness and understanding of it. That doesn't have to be a heavy exercise. We're going to watch a Knicks game here tonight, right? Yeah, inshallah, the Knicks win. There's 4 games you need to win, by the way. Just a word of advice. Don't say Knicks in 6 from right now. Even if it rhymes, we just want 4 more wins. If it gets to that point, then you can say the rhyme. But if you say that to the wrong Knicks fan, they're going to throw their drink in your face because they don't want the Knicks to win in 6. They want the Knicks to win in 4, right? I'm not saying this in a bad way. Do you know? There's going to be people who watch this game and they're going to be able to tell you the name of every player, all of their stats, the college they went to, things that they did 5 years ago, but they're not going to be able to tell you how it is that they can heal their heart when they're sad. Watching the game might be a tool to creating a sense of inward balance. But if you have the capacity to memorize at that level of depth, then you could probably increase knowledge and vocabulary that's relevant to a whole self. Do you see? And we could apply it probably in numerous arenas. Do you know what I mean? Somebody's having a good time, mashallah. So bucket number 1 in the how-tos of tazkiyah, you have to increase in knowledge. The same way you can't pray if you don't know how to pray. You can't fast if you don't know how to fast. You have a physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual sphere. You cannot understand your emotional and mental self if you don't have the words to be able to define it. If you don't know, go and ask somebody who knows. Don't pretend like you know. You wouldn't go online and Google or search on YouTube, how do I perform surgery on my own foot? Why do you think you could go online and search, how do I deal with this or that, all by yourself? And who's the one that wants to isolate you? It's not Allah, it's Iblis. Throw away foolish pride. It's a disease of the heart. Let the people who make sense help you. And then you start to learn also so you can actually help other people, as opposed to throwing at them words that also don't make any sense. We start to understand this now in a few different frames. These are going to be generalizations, but things that I would derive from having sat with thousands of people over the course of 20 years of serving this community. So starting with our physical self, right? Physical purification actually plays a deep role in inward purification. I want you to think about very deeply right now, not the reasons why it's not possible or how it came to be or why it's somebody else's fault, but with a clear, open head. Do you sleep well? And what do you have to purify your life of to sleep well? Not how do you purify your sleep in the direct sense, but what do you need to do to get yourself to sleep better by getting rid of this stuff that is laghu and shar? Let's take 2 minutes just to think inwardly. Do I sleep well? And what do I have to purify my life of in order to sleep better? I don't know what everybody's going through in this moment. If you have a specific that is difficult, someone passed away in your life, job loss, exam failed, relationship is tough. This is not necessarily the norm. It could be an anomaly, or if it's happened for a long time, it's a norm, and then you have to figure out how to deal with it. Maladaptive disorders psychologically are things that we start to do in exhaustion, where we innately just look for ways out because we're tired. The solution is not going to always be just let me cut it out. Let me just quit the job. Let me quit the relationship. Let me quit on my faith. Let me quit on myself. No, man. Shaitan wants you to hate yourself. Simple things. Don't let your mind be influenced by nafsani or shaitani thoughts. Just objective. What do you have to purify yourself of daily, weekly, to just get some better sleep? Let's think about it for a minute. Good. What's one thing somebody can tell me that they need to purify their life of in order to get better sleep? You, not like we, but just you. So in an I statement, I need to cut this thing out. What is it? Yeah. You don't need it, Mike. What is it, Nazi? I need to stop snoozing bedtime mode on my phone. Great. So here's now how we tangibly purify beyond exercises that will also purify, but we'll still need a similar construct to be able to become habitual. because by nature, we are habit-driven creatures. Does that make sense? Some of you get nervous, you do certain things. Some of you get bored, you do certain things. Some of you get excited, you do certain things. Some of you get cranky, you do certain things, right? There's people who studies show have dementia. They've forgotten everything, and they still can walk themselves home on certain streets because of just the way memory enables them through habit to move. Allah made us like this. When you have a habit, there's three parts to it. So think about the mic as the act in and of itself. I'm hitting the snooze button. At one end of the mic, the starting point of the action is the catalyst or trigger for the act, the unconscious act. Make sense? Something happens that puts into motion hitting the snooze button. And then on this end of the mic, the output of the act is the craving or the reward that's being satisfied through the action. So hitting the button starts in order to achieve something, right? You didn't hit the button because you just enjoy hitting buttons. Do you know? Maybe that's what you enjoy, actually, and that's the reward. I just like pushing buttons. But this structure can enable us to both consciously deconstruct as well as consciously construct in a prism of positive social habit transformation. Why do you think you hit the button, Nazia? What is it doing for you?
I get access to my notifications, people text me, or
No, but why do you hit the snooze button?
oh, so that's my right. So if it goes on bedtime mode, I don't get access to it. Screen goes blackberry. I have no idea what people are messaging. So if I snooze it and someone texts me after 11:05, then I will get notified, and then I can go and think that.
Great. So if you were to distill it into what's the reward from the act, the craving that it's satisfying?
Attention.
Maybe, great, attention, right? What triggers it or catalyzes it? What are potential things we could think of that put it into motion? Anxiety, stress, right? What if I miss something? I'm not saying you do this. It could be a lot of stuff. Yeah. You think it's what? Procrastination? Yeah, it could be, right? We don't all know what's going on in Nazia's head, so it's not applicable to her. Why do we want to know what the trigger or catalyst is, or what it's kind of satisfying at a reward or crave level? Because when most people try to deal with something, they focus on just changing and removing the act. If we can identify what it's satisfying or what puts it into motion, we can then focus on changing those variables. Do you see what I mean? Something else can then be what yields the satisfaction. Something else can be then the act that stems from acknowledging what puts it into motion, right? Something happens before you start fighting with people. Something happens before you decide that you're going to pray Isha at 3 o'clock in the morning. Something happens that you then start scrolling and 2 hours pass. And you're like, where did these 2 hours go? Do you know? Just like something happens that says, I will be in the gym today. I am going to go for a walk right now. These things can become habituated too. And that construct around this of how we can impact habits is going to be important, because if you don't tangibly identify what is the reward for you to habitually read Quran, for you to habitually engage in acts of kindness and generosity, for you to be in a place where you empty out, but you also fill in. Something's happening that you complain so much. Something's happening that your nature went from a thought to an act to a habit to demeanor and personality. It doesn't mean that we can't change. It is a shaitani statement or a shaitani influence statement that says, this is just who I am. Meaning what? You don't have the ability to be different? Of course you do. And it doesn't mean your default is there's something wrong. If we run through a couple of other things at a physical level that we can start to identify, sleep is going to be crucial and critical. Many scholars of this religion would say the Prophet ﷺ slept on average in biphasic modes of sleep, meaning 2 separate times of sleep, somewhere between 7 to 8 hours of sleep. When we look at the prophetic example, it's not so that we could say you're a bad Muslim because you don't do what the Prophet did, alayhi salam. But following the Sunnah is following the most well-balanced human being's way of being. Biphasic means that it happens in 2 distinct periods. The Prophet ﷺ, post-Isha, didn't really do too much stuff immediately after. He would get up to pray tahajjud, and then there was the midday nap that's called the qaylula. We don't necessarily, some of us have the luxury of sleeping in the middle of the day, the way our routines are structured. Some of us do. Some of us are not supposed to, and we still fall asleep in the middle of the day. How can you tell that your sleep is off? Well, if you're tired constantly, or like you're falling asleep at times that don't make sense. Your body's going to tell you it's exhausted. Messed up sleep can also be the source of something or the symptom of something. Sleeping too much is as at times damaging as not sleeping enough. So when you're thinking about this from a purification standpoint, physical wellness, start from this standpoint. What's my sleep like and why? 2, what you're consuming at every level, but let's think about it from the standpoint of food and drink. When you are in a consumer-driven society that just tells you to eat and eat and eat and eat, we're the only animals, right? The mouse ran away from harm. We run towards harm. Most animals, if not all of them, live in an existence where once they are done eating, they don't do other stuff. You don't see lions say to other lions, let's just go kill something for the sake of killing it. It only hunts when it needs to, right? The answer is yes. Similarly, you don't have animals that after they're done eating, they're like, man, I wish I had like seconds and thirds of this. They only eat to fill what they need to fill. We're the only animals that after we've filled our stomach, we keep eating. The relevancy of this conversation is that sometimes we do it to also numb emotions, pains. If there's not a strategy to it, but it's just done unconsciously, that's going to be a problem. A regular habit in your tazkiyah is that you have to revisit at a level that's applicable in all of these arenas, your niyyah, your intention. Because intention is going to be what it is that brings consciousness to your behaviors. Is there beauty in this thing I'm about to do? This thing that I'm going to drink, is it going to hurt or help me? You start to identify things that are what they are. It's not anything other than objective fact. There's ingredients that go into foods in this part of the country that are illegal in other parts of the country to use. If you're putting poison into your body, that's what's going to fuel you. So both the quantity and quality of what it is that's going in. In Allah Ta'ala tayyib, la yaqbal illa tayyib. Bring some intention to your consumption. Why do you eat food? Huh? You eat food because you're hungry? What? That's why you eat food? Yeah. When you remember. It's not good, right? Do you know? In your mind, you don't want to think about it. And thank you for your vulnerability. Eating too much is as bad as not eating enough. Moderation is this religion's way, the middle path. Purification in regards to your diet is not just, let me look at the ingredients, let me look at the supply chain. What's getting in the way that makes me forget to even eat? How many of you eat when you're bored and you don't have anything else to do? Yeah. Why? And how does that impact the rest of a routine? Do you see? When we talk about core beliefs, our socialization that's rooted as individuals that society wants us to hate ourselves. You're beautiful because Allah said He made you beautiful. You don't want to fall into standards that are against the sunnah of what beauty actually entails. At a physical level, if you can get your sleep and your consumption down strategically, and you build discipline around it, it's going to be a game changer. Don't undermine if you think you have had any Ramadan in your life that you have felt inwardly elevated at any point. I'm not saying every single one, because every single Ramadan you have been different from the year prior. Different stresses, different exhaustions. We do not want to become reductive and simplistic and say, this is only because of this. I'm saying if you've ever had a great Ramadan in your life, you cannot undermine what purifying your diet contributes to the output of that Ramadan. In the verse that we looked at that talks about the Prophet being sent to teach people about Allah's signs, hikmah, and tazkiyah, hikmah, wisdom, is about acting upon what you know. At an emotional level, one, you want to assume, not in a condescending way, but in a way that has love and compassion. Everybody's got something going on, man. Why do I tell you to say salams and talk to each other? So that you build the love that our Prophet teaches us, that is conditional for your iman to be complete. That you love the people that are around you, and you just love people. Ensuring that you're dealing with irreconciled feelings and emotions, and not pretending as if they don't exist. Thinking about what contributes. In emotional intelligence, no feeling is bad. Allah is the one that gave us all of our feelings. How we respond to a feeling can be good or bad. We don't want to reduce feelings to simplistic understandings of positives and negatives. So somebody could say joy is good to feel, but what if I feel joy at your misery? That's not good. Anger is bad. What if I'm not angry by cops shooting black people in the streets? What can be problematic is our response to an emotion, but the emotion in and of itself fundamentally is a data point. It's telling me something about me. Why do I get upset by the things I get upset by? Why do I get angry by the things I get angry by? Why do things that make me happy? Another bucket that emotional intelligence is built off of, I don't know everything about myself. And if you think you know everything about you, shaitan has got you. So how do you deal with it? Talk to people who are going to listen empathetically. Don't wait Don't be lazy. Don't procrastinate. The thing with emotional heaviness that's different from physical heaviness, if I carried this table every single day on my back, eventually I would start to get stronger and it would feel lighter. In my older age, I might not be able to do what I could do in my current age or maybe 20 years ago, but that's just progression by Allah's decree. But the essential principle is what it is. You carry physical weight, it will make you stronger and it will feel lighter. With emotional heaviness, it gets stronger, you get more exhausted, and it just becomes more burdensome. And then the other two buckets are important. A frustrating situation is going to be more frustrating if you don't sleep enough. If I'm going on 2 or 3 hours a night, I'm in a place where I stay up till the middle of the night, and then the world is heavy and toxic people and this and that, plus I didn't sleep. Well, why do you think it would make sense to not sleep? If you're not eating at all, or you're eating garbage, or you're eating with irregular routines, or you're eating things that have just an absence of purity, right? How can you purify yourself with something that's just impure? In a physical way as well as metaphysical. You should not be people who violate BDS in what you consume. And you understand, consequently, it will have impact on your inside and your ability to then endure what it is that the world throws at you. If I asked you, when your world is heavy, who do you turn to? Then if I asked you, when your world is not heavy, who do you turn to? If you're only talking to somebody when everything is going to hell, does that make sense? Versus you have a regular mode of expression that enables you to deepen your understanding of yourself in your entirety when things are good, so that when things inevitably will get tough, you've already built up a habit to know how to deal with certain things because you're engaging the right people who can help you understand your emotional self. Does that make sense? And the same can go at the level of mental exertion. Your physical wellness has to include some aspect of exercise, not in the pursuit of vanity, but in the pursuit of mental clarity. You purify your routine and schedule so that at a semi-regular basis, you want to do something light every day, go for it. You want a trick in how to keep doing it, do something that you enjoy doing. If you hate swimming, don't start swimming. But if you like swimming, then go and swim. You like to play soccer, you like to go for walks, you like to run, then do these types of things. If they could package what exercise does for you in terms of mental clarity and wellness into a pill, it would be the best-selling pill in the world. You have to get up off your rear end and do something. And it's going to help build mental strength and mental clarity and mental wellness. And simple things. Just go for a walk every couple of hours. Take a break from whatever it is that the screen is calling you to. Cut out some time in your routine. Purify it of lahu, distractions. And allow for yourself to understand that the exertion of energy in that regard is then not going to be energy that's available elsewhere. We can deepen in those three buckets of emotional, mental, and physical clarity. But if we go through a list of just things that we can start to do from the standpoint of like spiritual purification, the heart, tazkiyah, I'm going to run through a few things that are just like tangible acts. We already said, number one, you want to revisit and renew intention, not in a Sunday school way, but as a thinking, conscious human being. Why are you sitting here right now? It doesn't have to be the same reason as everybody else. I can only know if I'm reaching destinations if I revisit the why of what put my steps into motion in the first place. Otherwise, I'm going to randomly end up here or there, because spontaneity in and of itself is not a problem so long as it's not what defines and dictates everything. What gives me direction in the most tangible of ways is the intention behind the act that I'm undertaking. And when you don't have that consciousness, you start to engage in things without mindfulness, the lahu starts to overpopulate the routine. Is your world going to end if the snooze button stays on? No, right? Nazia is my sister. I care about her deeply. We've known each other probably longer than most of us have known each other in this room. She knows I'm not criticizing her, but being able to understand in those late hours when certain parts are thriving in tiredness, it's going to have you chase after something you already possess to begin with. Shaitan tells Adam to eat from the tree that Allah tells him not to, Shajaratul Khuld. And it's not as if they don't have an abundance of other things he can engage in. But the crazy thing is, they're already in Jannah. What's the tree of eternality going to do for him when eternal existence is already there? He's chasing after something he possesses. Intention becomes one of the key variables to reclaim consciousness in a moment where there is unconsciously driven thought and habit overwhelms at a nafsani or shaitani level. So you start to speak your intention and express it. I am better than pushing this button. This button does not control me. I am not going to just give in to emotions and angst and tell myself this is just who I am. One of the how-tos of tazkiyah, you bring intention into it with regularity. Second, you gotta pray your prayers, man. All 5 in the times they're supposed to be prayed. The hadith literally describes this in relation to an individual who would bathe and plunge into a river 5 times a day. The analogy extends to cleanliness. Could this person have anything of dirt on their being? And this is where you have to be honest with yourself. Praying the prayer is not getting up in half a daze and going up and down, like the rooster the Prophet told you not to peck at the ground like. Wudu is the first act many of us do spiritually in our day, even before we pray. How you are in your prayer is rooted in how you are in your wudu. Bring silence to your wudu, intention to your wudu, presence to your wudu. Let it be seen as a requisite act in relation to your salah. The Prophet ﷺ would sometimes remake his wudu when he already had wudu. Why would he do this? It's a separate act, not meant to be a mindless mechanical act, but a focused act. Establishing these 5 daily prayers for them to do then what the Quran says that they would do, right? Inna salata tanha anil fashai wal munkar, that indeed this thing of salah, it's a protector, a negator of things that are just not good. Are some of your prayers in this consumer-driven world where people worship dollars going to be hard to do? Yeah, man. You bring strategy into it. Once you figure out the strategy once, how do I make wudu in my office place? What kind of clothes should I wear to make wudu easier? How do I facilitate the fulfillment of the obligation? And then if I'm sitting here on whatever day of the week this is right now, at this time, then you could probably be sitting in a place like this that also has serenity at this time. Might not be here, closer to your apartment, closer to your house, could also be here. but you're establishing it and seeing it as modes of replenishment. Third, in your tazkiyah bucket, you gotta read Quran. Recite it, hear it, listen to it. Don't give an automated response. I don't know how to read Arabic. Then learn how to read Arabic. Today you learn one letter, alif. Tomorrow you learn ba. Go at a pace that makes sense for you. What you're saying that I don't know how to is not actually what you're claiming. It's got deeper layers to it. Read it, recite it, reflect on it, and then think about how it applies to your life. Fourth, you want to have a deliberate moment in your day that is around the doing of just dhikr, remembrance of Allah. Bring some stillness, bring some quiet, and allow for yourself to engage in the exercise of adhkar. The more you say certain words, they are just present in your head. Think about songs that pop into your head when you're not even thinking about them. Why? Because you're just populating your head with them. When your mind is empty and certain things just come to the front, that's what's happening. You're remembering something. Now you want to control the dhikr of it. And why do you want to bring Allah into the moment? Because Allah knows that you're bigger than the boxes that this world puts you in. Parents who speak poorly to you, jobs that are unfair to you, colleagues that don't really ask how you are, friends that have excuses as to why they don't check in. Remember Allah, because Allah's got your back. And the Quran says very clearly, indeed in the remembrance of Allah do hearts find rest. That polish of the heart, the Prophet says, alayhi salam, every single thing has the capacity to rust. This is hadith. And in relation to rust of the heart, the Prophet says its polish is dhikr. I don't know why that's that. Just like I couldn't tell you, why do we make water the primary agent for wudu? Why don't we use soap? I don't know. This is what Allah and His Messenger said. So I can put this water on that graffiti. It won't work. And why we don't take the graffiti off is because it's so etched into the window that if we were to scrape it off, it would compromise on the integrity of the window. And that could be a safety kind of issue for us. And probably in a year, we're going to knock down that whole wall anyway, right? But as much as I want, this water is not going to take that graffiti off. It needs a different type of solution and solvent and equipment. One of the things that dhikr is supposed to do and yield as an exercise is that it polishes the rust off of your heart. You don't have to get what it is that it's doing. What's going to keep me from doing it? Laziness, procrastination. But if I incentivize what's the yield, the first few times I go to a gym and run on treadmill might be miserable. I might throw up. But then a year into it, 2 years into it, you start to feel like substantially better. A few weeks into it, you start to notice differences. You got to do the exercise. 5 and 6, the regular practice of istighfar, seeking forgiveness. And ghafara in Arabic is a type of forgiveness that's about covering. So you're asking Allah in that moment to cover the stuff that happened, conceal it. And it enables a movement towards the development of subtle shortcomings, mistakes, pride, envy, ghafla. You couple this with what we call tawbah. A 7th, you engage in what's called muhasabah, inventorying. So what was this day like that I lived? Did I eat well? Did I not? Did I sleep well? Did I not? But be open to understanding yourself as a whole being. If last night I had a fight with my wife, I probably wouldn't sleep well. But also, if last night I ate a bucket of ice cream at midnight, I probably wouldn't sleep well. At Fajr time, if I'm in a daze because of those two things, it's not because like Fajr just doesn't work for me. It's because of what was happening the night before. Muhasaba creates an opportunity for me to see what the impact is consequently on all kinds of things on me on the course of my day. Sheikh Dawood Yassin, who some of you know, is a good friend of mine. He's now in Austin, Texas. Some years ago, he did a diet called the GAPS diet. And this is a diet where you basically cut out everything from what you eat. And this man would just drink broth for every meal for like, I don't know how long. Sheikh Dawood, if you've ever met him, is like a tall man. He tells his story publicly about before his conversion. He was actually a supermodel. So there's times when he'll come to the city and he and I will hang out and he'll be like, oh, let's hang out with some of my old friends. And we're walking down the street and with these like tall, beautiful men. It's very emasculating because everybody's staring at them. Nobody's looking at me because I'm 5'2" and they are not 5'2". So of course he does this diet and everyone's like, it's the most amazing thing in the world. It's great. He didn't eat anything other than soup for however long. And then slowly he started to reintroduce certain food items just to see how his body responded to it. It helped his children to deal with eczema. It helped other people to deal with emotional challenges that they had. But there was a way to bring critical understanding of how something catalyzed something else. Do you understand? Muhasaba, when we review, is not so we beat up on ourselves, but it helps us to shift in order to get to a goal. What did I do well today? Where did I fall short? What can I improve tomorrow? How was my eating? How was my sleeping? Did I call the persons I wanted to? A lot of challenges that we have inwardly is not because we break promises to others, but we break promises to ourselves. And we feel bad. I'm the worst thing. I told myself I was going to go to the gym, but I don't. No, man, just get up and try it again. But think about what contributes to making it difficult. Don't reduce it to its most simplistic understanding. Sometimes we miss what it is that's actually making it hard, and then we can identify the obstacles. Number 8, you want to guard the tongue. From a tazkiyah standpoint, reduce gossip, reduce backbiting, reduce excessive argumentation, reduce pointless speech. When you're going to speak, just make sure you're putting beauty into the world. من كان يؤمن بالله وباليوم الآخر فليقل خيرا أو ليصمت. Believe in the hadith enough that you start to act upon it. Whoever believes in Allah on the last day, the Prophet says, let them utter good or be silent. You're killing your heart. Does it feel good? Non-stop fighting, non-stop arguing, non-stop complaining, non-stop negativity, gossip, backbiting, all kinds of things. This is not a religion that encourages us to be vulgar or atrocious in our language. 9, you want to try your best to purify relationships, meaning forgive where it's possible. And that's not for the sake of the one being forgiven, but for you, because forgiveness is for the forgiver. And you're entitled to forgive. It's your right, not your responsibility. You don't want to have toxic anger and let someone still overwhelm you with control over you. Let it go. And you work with people who can help you get to those places and all of these things. You don't harbor resentment, and you do your best to fulfill the rights and responsibilities that families, neighbors, friends have over us. 10th, Give charity with regularity if you can. Acts of volunteerism, kindness, sadaqah. It will help to detach your heart from the pursuit of wealth, that you just keep it for yourself. Just a little bit. Try to give to somebody. Share food with people. Be in a place where you have some regular component of being generous. The way to increase virtue is going to be the performance of the virtue itself. You can fast, engage in fasting. Anybody who is serious about their spiritual diet in our tradition, they would engage in some aspect of fasting. And then lastly, you want to have some time where you just reflect. Fikr is a deep part of our spiritual diet. These are tools that are going to help in the purification process as an exercise. You don't have to do 40 things all at once, but just with a gradual progression. And the beauty of our tradition is that Allah gives us diverse ways of engagement so that we don't get bored with things. Can you imagine if the only thing you were able to do as a Muslim was fast? What would life be like? What if you could only do pilgrimage? There's 2 billion of us in the world right now. How would that even work? I'm going to offer you a couple of things in addition to it, which can help with deepening self-examination. One of the things that is going to be important is to start to identify strategically like what lives inside of your heart. What's my biggest struggle? Is it pride? Is it envy? Is it love of status? Is it greed? Is it laziness? Is it ghafla? Is it heedlessness? Don't hate on yourself. You're just identifying. And then you try to focus on one thing rather than all of it and fixing it all at once. If you couple it with where it is that you excel, the nafs al-lawama, what do I do good that I can do better, means I have to identify what I do good also. What do I not do well? How do I improve upon it? But you have to recognize and notice what exists within you and to be able to name it for what it is. Why am I so attached to the things I'm attached to? I can be really mean. I'm nice to some people, but terrible to certain types of people. I don't treat my kids well. The realization of it becomes an important part because we are not a religion that's taught to falsify our condition in front of Allah. We believe that anybody can change, including ourselves. If you have the ability to be comfortable with it, you start to, in your muhasabah, actually write things down. If I kept a record of the stupid things that I tell lies about on a daily basis, or the number of times I tell a lie, it'd be shocking. As much as I start to think about beyond the recurringness of habituated sin, what are like the blessings that came into my life today? Where did I see actual answered du'as? Insights that are rooted in spirituality, that are about the deepening of meaning and the ascertaining of meaning. Five qualities in this vein that we want to try to build a relationship with. And the starting point, go home after you write these down and write a definition for yourself as to what it is. Humility is a big part of our tradition. Avoiding looking down at others, recognizing that everything comes from Allah. Meaning, it's not a variable to make me feel better or worse than somebody else. What does humility mean to you? How do you inculcate it in your life? I'm telling you what I think of you based off of how I treat you, how I talk to you, how I don't talk to you, how I speak about you when you're there and how I speak about you when you're not there. But I'm also telling me about me, a quality you want to strive towards, humility. Second, sabr, patience. Third, gratitude, shukr. Fourth, reliance on Allah, tawakkul. And fifth, ikhlas, sincerity. We're not going to talk about them in too much detail because you should go home and have in a notebook that you reflect in a back page that is just like a word list or vocab list. And you start writing definitions to things. A bunch of people end up in terrible relationships, not because they don't feel something, but they've never defined what love actually means. And then when you're in love, but you don't know how to honor love, you get to a place where you realize love is not the only variable needed to sustain a relationship. And then because we're innately forgetful, we start to then think maybe I wasn't in love in the first place. No, man, nobody actually ever taught you what it means to be in love and how do you honor it. You don't have a definition of it. You just have the feeling that you've experienced. What does humility look like? What does sabr look like? What does tawakkul look like? What does ikhlas look like? We start to cultivate some of these things. Let's do this. Or let me just really quickly, one last thing. Some things that you want to try to cut out. Again, these are generalizations, but it's a diverse group of people. You want to limit things that are just excessive distractions, things that are going to leave your heart in a state of heedlessness. Unnecessary social media consumption, it's taking your energy, your mental energy, your brain energy, but also pay attention, how does certain content impact you or affect you? So you could sit and watch like dancing cats all day, right? But also, if all you see are the bodies of bloody children, that's going to hurt your heart. You're not built to see that so much. Third, you gotta reduce or remove bad company. Meaning spend more time with people who are people that advance you in terms of inward development. That's not gonna always be the sheikh or the scholar, the person who is good at praying. Hang out with people who pray, because as was said before, right? Afghan Farsi proverb that was shared with us. You hang out with idiots, don't be surprised you become an idiot. But you want to start to hang out with people that you don't have to explain yourself to just be there. Not people who are going to just tell you yes to everything you have to say, but also encourage you to develop in your own character. You want to try to cut out hasad, envy. In a consumer-driven society, everything is about comparison. I can't be happy with what I have. I'm dissatisfied. And why does somebody else have what I don't have? If it's hard, you still try to do it. Make dua for the people that you have envy of. And then one of the most important things you want to reduce and remove is foolish, unhealthy pride, what we call kibr. Allah protect us from it. You accept correction. You can make mistakes. It's only okay if you learn from them. If no one exists in your life who has the ability to tell you when you are not being who you are supposed to be, or help you to understand when you are being an idiot, that's probably a you problem. And your ego is getting in the way. And in that, you start to recognize your reliance and dependence on Allah. Okay, let's do this. I was just talking for a good chunk of time. What are you taking away from today's conversation? What is it bringing up for you in terms of tazkiyah, in terms of the broader verse, وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ لِلزَّكَاةِ فَاعِلُونَ? Let's talk about it a bit, then we'll make dua, and we'll talk about what we're going to do the rest of the night while we're watching the game. But go ahead. What are you taking away from tonight's conversation?
Okay, maybe we can hear from one or two people, and then we'll make dua and close up so people don't think we tricked them into coming to watch the game and just sing the halakha. Yeah. What do we think? What are we taking away from today's conversation? Or the entire, if you've been here for the last 3-4 weeks, we've been talking about this verse. Go ahead.
So, one thing I have realized, and me and the brothers we were sharing with each other, is spend a lot more time on self-reflecting with the emotions that you're going through, or the type of events that you see yourself or you find yourself falling into over and over again, whether it's in a happy moment or in a moment of sadness. And try to realize the pattern and what makes you fall into that specific situation to begin with. And as Imam Khalid mentioned, then having a journal for like gratitude or things that you accomplished throughout the day. What are the steps that you took to achieve that goal, and what made you not achieve that goal, and what can you do to be better? So overall, coming back to the full circle is self-reflection, because the more we self-reflect on ourselves and on our actions, the more we get to know ourselves on a much deeper level of why we do things and when do we do those things. So I think that's my explanation.
Great. Any other thoughts?
I know. My partner and I talked about over self-analyzing to the point where you're like blocking yourself because you're just constantly thinking about, oh my God, I messed this up. This is an area that I can improve. What can I do better here? How can I blah, 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 just overdoing it. Where sometimes it's more beneficial to stop and take a look at the past and see the level of improvement and how far you've come. And then from there, taking a step and realizing, okay, I've improved so much. These are the areas I can work on, and kind of taking it much slower rather than the like crazy cycle of just being trapped in the right now and not benefiting yourself from that.
Yeah, just go slow. Not in a race. Just go gradually, day by day. Yeah.
Assalamu alaikum. Hibba and I spoke about not only the kind of difficult realization that you do have to confront yourself and thus to kind of to overcome laziness and to overcome the heedlessness that we tend to be inclined to, but beyond that initial kind of confrontation with the self, maybe the more difficult thing is like the tiny, slightly more difficult than the normal habit that you're going to have to choose over and over and over and over and over and over. And that point of conflict is where the nafsi really going to come out to play.
Great. We're gonna take a pause. We'll make dua. For those who are able to stick around after Maghrib, today's game 1 of the NBA Finals. We're gonna set up and screen it here. Dawood, do you know where you're gonna set up the live stream? It's gonna go on this wall. Okay, so after Maghrib, please give us like a few minutes to get everything set up. If anybody bought any snacks, we'll set up a table in the back for food that you could put over there. And then depending on how many people stick around, we might order something for people to eat as well. Okay, let's make a quick dua before we wrap up, inshallah. Allahumma ameen. اللهم لك الحمد كما ينبغي لوجهك وعظيم سلطانك لك الحمد حمدا طاهرا طيبا مباركا فيه إلى يوم الدين
اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد في الأولين وفي الآخرين. اللهم اجعلنا من المخلصين. اللهم اجعلنا من المخلصين. اللهم اجعلنا من المخلصين. We begin this supplication in your name, Ya Allah, and beseech you to send your choicest salutations upon your most beloved, sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam. We affirm, Ya Rabbi, that all praise belongs to you, the one who created us, sustains us, and continually invites us back to him. We thank you for gathering us in remembrance of you and for allowing us to reflect on your words and the path of purification that leads to nearness to you. Ya Allah, we ask you tonight not simply for knowledge, but for transformation. We ask you not simply for understanding, but for hearts that are changed by what they understand. Ya Rabbi, purify our hearts. Purify them from arrogance and replace it with humility. Purify them from envy and replace it with contentment. Purify them from resentment and replace it with forgiveness. Purify them from hardness and replace it with mercy. Purify them from heedlessness and fill them with constant remembrance of you. Ya Allah, if there are diseases within our hearts that we do not yet see, reveal them to us through your mercy before they reveal themselves through our actions. Give us the courage to confront what is within us, the sincerity to seek your help, and the perseverance to continue the work of tazkiyah throughout our lives. Ya Allah, purify our bodies. Make our outward cleanliness a reflection of our inward cleanliness. Protect us from using the blessings of our health in ways that displease you. Let every step we take, every action we perform, and every part of ourselves become a means of serving you and serving your creation. Ya Allah, purify our minds. Remove from them thoughts that distract us from you, assumptions that diminish others, and anxieties that cause us to lose hope in your rahmah. Grant us clarity of thought, wisdom, and judgment, and the ability to see ourselves, others in this world through the lens of faith and compassion. Ya Allah, purify our souls, cleanse them of every attachment that competes with our attachment to you. Free us from the prisons of our egos and the illusions of self-sufficiency. Make our souls yearn for what is beloved to you and find rest only in your remembrance. Ya Allah, make us people who understand that purification is not a destination, but a lifelong journey. Do not allow us to become discouraged by our shortcomings or deceived by our successes. Keep us in a constant state of turning back to you, seeking forgiveness from you and relying upon you. Make us amongst those whose prayers purify them, whose charity purifies them, whose fasting purifies them, whose service purifies them, and whose relationships become means of drawing nearer to you. Let every act of worship refine our character and soften our hearts. When we look at ourselves, allow us to see what needs to be improved without losing sight of your mercy. When we look at others, allow us to see them through eyes of compassion rather than judgment. Grant us hearts that are sound, minds that are clear, bodies that are disciplined, and souls that are at peace. Make us amongst those who meet you with hearts free of rancor, tongues filled with remembrance, and lives spent in sincere devotion. Accept from us whatever was pleasing to you in this gathering. Forgive what fell short. Let the light of this conversation remain within us long after we leave this space, and make it a means through which we become better servants, better family members, better friends, and better representatives of this beautiful faith. Protect us always from hearts that are not humble, tongues that are not wise, and eyes that have forgotten how to cry. Forgive us for our shortcomings and guide and bless us all. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا يا مولانا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم وصلى الله تعالى على خير خلقه محمد وآله وصحبه أجمعين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين.
Barakallahu feekum. People want to just put the chairs against the wall for the time being while we pray Maghrib. We'll call the adhan and the iqamah shortly thereafter. You can just do.
Should I bring the dessert tables over?
You want to just take this table?
There's already they're already set up.
Oh yeah, it's great. You can put out.